begins. There's a load bar.
Load bar.
Setting up your webinar for YouTube Live.
Are we live right now?
Done redirecting you to YouTube. And
look.
There we go.
You just see if we're on there. Oh yeah, it says we're live. It says 2 people are already watching. Uh-oh.
Oh no.
We are one
Sorry,
and
y'all.
we are the other.
Weird.
So
Sorry guys, we're it's our first time doing this, so we're still kind of working out the kinks.
yes.
How is everybody out there?
We are we're technophiles, but we're real people. Without much skill to speak of.
Sounds like something a fake person would say.
A real human,
Hello,
just
everyone.
like you and me. Guess we got to do introductions because there's
Oh
not
yeah,
face to name correspondence so far. Who's Jack, I wonder?
it's that one.
It's me.
Wait.
Oh right, all right. On the screen, you're over here.
Okay, yeah, it's reversed. It's a little confusing.
Yeah.
We figured it out.
Well, I've sufficiently embarrassed myself, so we got that out of the way. Yes, hi, I'm Jack. This is me. Hi,
Does
hello.
he look how you expected him to? And then Andrew, Matthew. Thanks for coming and visiting, y'all. So cool to see everybody's names in the group. Y'all have some great usernames. I just got off work in time for this. So we already have some comments in the thread about the fact that book 4 is coming out. Congrats, Jack.
Thank you very much. It's a long time coming. Thank y'all both for all of your help. Like I couldn't have done it without y'all's support and suggestions and beta reading and occasionally just kicking my butt into gear when I kind of slacked a little bit. So thank y'all.
Well, what that means, those of you watching, is that Matthew and I have had the pleasure of a little bit of advanced viewing, and we can tell you are in for a ride.
Yeah.
So.
I love how vague that is. Let's say what kind of ride.
What's, for anyone who doesn't know already, I might as well say, Jack, what's the state of things?
Oh, for the book? Well,
yeah.
In case you're first a fan of Snake's Paw and don't actually know, I wrote a book series called Tales from the Gas Station. Finally wrapped it up with the epic conclusion, book 4. And everything was planned for a launch for Monday. But when I submitted the paperback manuscript for KDP, my publisher with Amazon, apparently I have like a legacy status, and they're like, yeah, you're fine. So everything accidentally went ahead of schedule, and the paperback is now available where fine books are sold, but mostly on Amazon. It's going to be probably a few more weeks before it trickles into bookstores and libraries. So if you need to get it now, Amazon.
And we, one of the questions that we got, I think we know the answer to this, but worth putting it out there, is what about the other formats, including one of the questions was about the audiobook. So any idea about any of those things?
This is probably the most common question I've gotten in the last week. Actually, I see it already. Brendan, you're asking, is Mr. Creepypasta doing the audiobook? And yes, Mr. Creepypasta is returning to voice the 4th audiobook. It's going to be more of a challenge than the others because it's, well, I don't want to give anything away. Let's just say it's going to be an interesting audiobook to listen to. Mr. Creepypasta already has the book. He's already doing the groundwork for it, but we can't say exactly how long it will take. So, minimum probably a couple months.
Fellas in demand.
Yeah.
It's a long book too.
It's a very long book.
I'm excited to hear what some of these voices sound like. It would be a real vision quest if I were doing some of these character voices, is all I'm gonna say.
Hints towards the content.
And Amber, in the thread, you've seen right through us. This perhaps was why we decided to do a live stream today.
Yes, this is happening.
It's good timing all around. Since we've been at this podcast thing for a little bit, Jack has reason to celebrate in his life. Those of you who are fans of the books, y'all too. So it's just like happy times all around.
Yeah.
And it's after St. Patrick's Day, and none of us own any green. So
It's true. I totally forgot that St. Patrick's Day happened on St. Patrick's Day.
it always falls on St. Patrick's Day somehow.
Yeah, you think I'd remember.
We so y'all who are in attendance, we got some questions in advance, and we also welcome them in the comment thread all throughout. So please feel free to share them anytime, and we will cycle them on in.
I'm noting down questions in the chat, so if we don't answer them immediately, we will get around to them.
Yeah, we're gonna try to keep things. It's some remote version of orderly, but we'll see what that looks like.
I've blockaded the door to this room, but my dog, I have a puppy. She was a failed foster, and she's trying to break in. So I'm just gonna go re-secure that dog real quick, or re-secure the door.
Anything y'all want to say about Jack while he's damn, never mind.
Not too late.
Ooh, and yeah, I like Brendan's question here. That'll be an interesting one to hear. So we might as well start with a little bit of book related stuff. We had a fun question, Jack, that, as not everyone may know, Volume 4 brings this series to a close. And somebody, Vizo37 asked, excited for Volume 4, and seeing as it's the end of the story, if you could change anything about the first 3 volumes, what would it be?
So there's probably a million nitpicky things, because every time I read something I've already written, I'll find a whole lot of stuff like, I should have changed that. If I could go all the way back to the beginning, there's one thing that's always just bothered me a little bit. The fact that the 2 main characters, Jack and Jerry, both have J names. I can't tell you, like, it's like nails on a chalkboard almost. And my dog just broke the door open. Come here.
Everyone's asking to see the dog anyway. So
okay, well, she's probably about to jump up. Hey,
give puppy a cameo.
This is Izzy.
We haven't met this dog either.
Yeah, this is Queen Elizabeth. So, okay, I gotta go do work now. Yeah, as far as like other things that I would change, there's a few other big things I would probably have switched around. I'd need more time to probably think about it. You'd think I would have read these questions ahead of time and had an answer prepared, but no.
Well, we have kind of an adjacent question that spans the whole series. So Alexi wanted to know, did you already know where the story was going to go when you started writing? And how do you come up with your characters? So a 2-parter there.
Ooh, I like it. So yes and no for the first thing. I had a lot of the endings were already planned out. Like, oh, I almost said how the 4th one ends. I knew how the 4th book was going to end when I started, but there were a lot of elements that had to change along the way, that I was setting stuff up that just never quite made it to fruition. The best example being the character of Jerry was totally supposed to die really early on. I know, right?
Know that?
You didn't? Yeah, so but fan reception kind of did like the Sherlock thing preemptively, and I was like, I can't kill him now. People would hate me. So he made it until at least the 4th book. You'll have to read to see if he survives all the way. And what was the second half of that question?
Second half of it was, how do you come up with your characters?
Yeah, no, I actually take a very lazy route on that one. Pretty much every character in the story is based on a real person, with some fun liberties taken. Like the best example, the character of Travis. Yeah, so just I heard the person who Travis ended up being based on talking one day, and I just had to like stop and start writing stuff down, like, oh, this is going in the book. And yeah, so I just find the best parts of people I know, and the funniest parts, and yeah, I let real life do the heavy lifting.
we get to hang out in person decently often, and there are definitely a lot of moments where there's a like, that's going in a book. Doesn't always happen, at least not yet. I don't know how many books it'll take for the full list to get exhausted, but there's a lot of, it's just seems like the flypaper is always hanging and whatever sticks to it.
Yeah. It helps to carry around like a little journal or something. So,
Or, you know, a phone.
oh yeah.
We got some cool questions about writing process and stuff that both relates to Tales from the Gas Station, but also we're writing podcasts more generally. I think a lot of the folks who listen and watch are writers themselves. So a question connected to the how do you come up with your characters, we have from Nicholas Brown 2127. Hello, I'm an aspiring writer who often struggles with writer's block. What are some ways that you find helpful in getting through it? And what are your tips for creating character? So this is one we could share if y'all wanted.
Yeah. So for me, writer's block is totally a real thing. When like the system I've made for myself is if you ever can't write what you want to write, just write anything. Like it's that technique. If you only have enough spoons to do one dish, it's better to do one dish than no dishes. So a lot of times if I just can't get into writing what I want to write, I'll open a new document and just whatever, just be like, there is a table in this room. And honestly, just doing that is enough to keep whatever muscle it is that tells you like, oh, I'm sitting down and writing, I can still do this. So that's my best advice for that.
Yeah, I find that there's a lot of steps in the writing process. And so you have like, you're thinking of ideas, you're writing stuff down, and then you're like revising and editing things later on. I find it helps to have multiple projects going at any given time, so I can kind of switch gears if I need to.
Yeah, definitely.
And also if I'm having trouble like writing something new, writing new ideas, then I go to like the revision stage and I look at some of the other stuff, and that like kind of fills the time and gives me time to like flesh out and think out some of the other things.
Yeah. There's a practice that a lot of artists of different mediums do that they just call morning pages, which is just either when you start your day or when you start your work hours, that you just kind of sit down and write the kind of usual choices, 3 pages of just whatever drivel flows into your head. And as Jack said, the kind of fact of just stringing sentences together has a kind of stimulating effect. And it's kind of, you know, it all, like the internet, the creativity is a series of pipes, and you just gotta like unclog it, just knock some stuff out. As far as the character generation idea, I think there's actually, so Matthew and I have collaborated on some plays before, and one way that we often come up with characters is people find relatability in things that they already understand, which you could say, well, that's cliches. Why would you want to write cliches? But there's some fun to be had, at least as far as groundwork, from taking 2 very different cliches and smashing them together, like things that seem really incompatible, because it gives you identifiability and surprise at the same time.
It's like character chemistry.
Yeah.
It's something that would react
like the bathroom cowboy.
Bathroom cowboy, all the way. Mysterious spirit / potentially intoxicated roadside character. Take on the bathroom cowboy.
A very interesting take. I wasn't going to say anything. It's like,
also, regarding writer's block, I find it helps to have collaborators or people who are just willing to read your work or offer feedback on your work. We hold each other accountable, which is nice. and so with the Snake's Paw especially, you have, you know, we're all, even if we're writing a project independently, we're still getting feedback from the others, and we have deadlines, which also helps.
Yeah,
deadlines can be a double-edged sword. Like a deadline can be really good for motivation, and it can be really bad for motivation.
Mr. Creepypasta's in the chat.
Let me close the door.
Oh, hey. We got a connected question from someone with the great username of Inkheart and Silverstein. Hope you're here.
Ooh, that's a
And
good name.
I want to guess that those are references to the young adult novel Inkheart and Shel Silverstein, the children's poetry writer, but who knows for sure, other than you. So best advice for writing even when the juice is gone. I so often abandon projects when the zest for them is gone, but I really want to try and stop. And that feels like that's kind of, there's writer's block when you want to do it, but you don't know how. And then there's just like, I don't know what's next. I don't know if I have the will for it. And what I feel like kind of strings together some of the things we've been saying is having routine and habits is a pretty magical touch, as is collaborators. I think is one of the big things that strings you through that. Writing can be really lonely.
Yeah, and especially it's fun when you're writing something together. Like when we wrote the Houdini thing, like Andrew and I wrote it, and then Jack helped brainstorm stuff and was offering insights and suggestions all throughout.
This is the Houdini and Marjorie series that we published through The Snake's Paw.
If you haven't seen it, go check it out right now. Well, not right now, but after this.
So I would like write something, I'd pass it off to Andrew, and he'd maybe make some changes to it. And so there's this kind of dynamic, like interacting together, which makes it easier to write because someone else is also doing some of the writing.
You get to come back and it's different.
Yeah.
There's a concept in programming that a lot of like engineers do called the rubber ducky method. And it actually works surprisingly well for writers too. I had to do something like this while I was working on volume 4. There were a lot of times where the plot lines kind of got a little bit convoluted. And the idea is you just take a rubber ducky and then you just explain it to the rubber ducky, like what you're trying to do. And usually just by saying it out loud, you'll be like, oh, okay, now I get it myself. That's kind of more specific for if you tied yourself into a knot. But if you just lose your steam, I think a good thing to do is just give yourself permission to put it on the back burner and say, you're not abandoning it. You're just going to put it somewhere until the time is right to finish it. And while it's there, feel free to, take out good parts that you really liked from it. If it's going to fit into another thing you're writing. That's what I do. I have a lot of projects in the back burner right now.
Gotten a glimpse.
I have borrowed so many elements from it to go into the gas station stories.
So we have a few questions that are kind of related and include someone asked ahead of time about this as well. They're asking how we thought of, like, what was the idea for the series? I'm not sure. Pink Enigma is asking about the series. I'm not sure which series.
It was probably right about the time we mentioned Houdini and Marjorie. So first guess would be that, but maybe it was a gas station question. Pink Enigma, if you wanna shout out which one you were thinking about, please feel free.
Well, that's clarified. Several people have asked where the Snake's Paw name came from.
Oh yeah,
there's actually kind of a story behind that. And so it is obviously based on the Monkey's Paw, the famous short story. But do you want to tell us origins?
Okay, so when you go back into this, collaborators in writing are less common than collaborators in other media, and I would say our kind of collective creative origin story would be, for us, we've known each other for a very long time. Kind of the art of pretend on the playground really would have been our original collaborative medium.
Yeah.
But we started making sort of like sketch comedy video shorts as like middle and high schoolers. I mean, absolute crap, like stuff that had no editing. Like you want something to disappear and you are filming it and then you like turn the camera off and then you remove it and you turn the camera back on. It's like Bewitched style disappearance. So, and like not any kind of writing process or anything, but we did a sketch of a thing called The Snake's Paw, which was a monkey's paw variation, but in the end what saved the narrator was the realization that snakes don't have paws, and therefore the complete rejection of the premise. So just profoundly silly high school thing we did together. But when we were discussing The Snake's Paw as a podcast idea in the first place, we were coming at it from the notion of like, we all are fans of different kinds of genre literature and things like The Monkey's Paw that are just such treasures of that. but like putting a twist on that classic stuff and putting a little bit more of the comedy sensibility that we share into it, that it kind of reminded us of the odd literary reference that we made in our sketch comedy days. So the video of that is out there somewhere, but
it will never be seen by anyone.
Nope. Oddly enough, though, it was Jack who was not in that video who was the one who first.
I got to hear the retelling of the story down the line, and it hit a nerve the right way.
Did we end up getting it?
Yeah, so I think Enigma clarified it was the Houdini and Marjorie.
Oh, yeah.
She was asking about.
Do you want to share where that came from?
Yes, if I can remember, because so much of the time, like a project grows so much that you kind of lose track of where it started. Because I remember originally we talked about, I think we were kind of interested in seances in general and just the dynamic of them. And then we heard about this particular story, we heard about the Marjorie story, which is of course based on it's actually happened.
Those of you not familiar with the story, Houdini was a very, very popular magician and escape artist, of course, but he also had a big kind of side hustle of debunking spiritualists. He would go to spiritualists who people had deep belief in, and he would reveal mid-seance what their tricks were. And the one that perhaps gave him the hardest time, at least most publicly, was a woman named Mina Crandon, whose stage name was Marjorie. So had a run-in with her that kind of escalated famously and had big ripples in the lives of everybody involved. And we did a fictionalization of that real historical premise.
You guys did so much research on that too, y'all. Finding
there's some books
that were out of print
there. Y'all, you ever read a book? There's a lot of them.
And it originally started that we were kind of conceiving of it as like a film idea, like the notion of turning into a movie. But then it turns out movies cost a lot of money.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
So we just did audio stuff.
So this became a very ambitious radio drama.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's us digging into history, and Matthew and I are both kind of history tour guides for part of our work lives, and so digging into historical events and making stories out of them. That's our
just saw in the text that my picture is slightly crooked.
Or your chair is slightly crooked, one of the two.
I'm gonna knock it off.
Aw, now everybody's stuck looking at it. We're also just slightly off center, Jack.
Oh.
We can see
there's a little better.
There's a little bit of obsession in the room.
This is the high quality content people tune in. Straightening a picture.
This is like visual ASMR. It's just like straightening pictures. We got anything else in the,
yes, I noted.
We got a few
in the comment thread that
there's one sort of random question which I found fun. What's the worst job each of you has worked from Gingerbread Man?
Oh, the worst job we've ever worked.
Can I suggest that it Jack might have been named after a dog? Just a guess.
What?
A dog named Lola.
Oh. Yes, no,
Just
that's absolutely the one. So I worked at for a brief time back in high school, I worked at a restaurant called, I can say it right. Yeah, no, it doesn't exist anymore. We're not going to get into trouble. A restaurant called Lola Blues. And it was just, that young, I didn't realize that that's not how things worked. But one of my responsibilities as a waiter at Lola Blues was anytime the bill collectors came, the owner would be like, I'm ducking out the back. Tell me you haven't seen me. And towards the end of the summer, they finally went out of business, and like the other waiters showed up to work, and there are people just carrying out like the equipment and stuff. And like, hey, what's going on? I guess like the bank or whoever debtors like or debtees finally like showed up and started taking stuff. I'm like, no, you're shut down. Oh my gosh, there were so many times when like they would run out of just you name it, and they ran out of it. And I'd have to like be like, yes, you ordered the hamburger. I just learned that we are out of meat. Would you like the bun? And people got so mad at me. So that was probably my worst job.
Restaurant work, y'all. It's terrible. I had my life threatened at a restaurant job. That's easily one of the worst ones I ever had. All of my worst jobs were restaurant jobs, but you pay your dues.
Yeah, I never did a restaurant. Oh, I was a dishwasher once, my first job, which was fine. I was in the kitchen.
I was a dishwasher for a brief time.
What would you say was your worst?
My worst job. So as Andrew mentioned, he and I both give tours, and I enjoy giving tours. But there's one particular company that I worked for, which I very much did not enjoy.
You want to name and shame
a
them?
month? Yeah. Well, so Andrew and I both live in New Orleans, and we give tours around the city, especially in the French Quarter.
So if you're ever in New Orleans,
from
look
his
them up.
latest story, which is set there.
Yeah. So the last story that we published, Ride or Die, is set in the French Quarter, and we definitely gleaned some details from real life in that case.
And there's a group called French Quarter Phantoms, which is very popular. They give mostly ghost tours, and it was just, I just didn't like it. Like sometimes you didn't know till like an hour beforehand whether you'd be working that night, which is just not a good working situation. Things like that.
We got people in the comment thread who have dealt with McDonald's, with like restaurants and retail, and it's all the same stuff. It's like stringing you along, cutting your hours, bulking your hours, telling you everything at the last minute, no benefits, naturally, all that stuff. So
we also have sort of a follow-up question. What is the weirdest thing to happen to you at your job? It's directed at everyone.
And a worthwhile question: has anyone actually worked at a gas station?
That is from Optimistic Avocado. Hello. Yeah, I know you work at the gas station. We've talked about that before. I hope I wasn't an inspiration for you getting that job, by the way. No, honestly, I have not worked at a real gas station. I worked at something similar to it that the gas station is based on, but they did not sell gas. But I think we've all worked retail, or is it? No, just me? Or are you? I don't know.
I've worked in retail stuff.
Ish.
Yeah, I've worked at some convenience style stores that were not convenient.
We also have Mr. Creepypasta in the comment thread.
Oh, hey.
With a either a reference that I miss. I'm always the one who misses references, y'all. So just look forward to flying over my head, or just more solidarity for the horrible restaurant experiences. So hey, MCP, if you were in restaurant world at any point before getting into the voiceover racket, solidarity.
That's great. Since I found the series because I worked at a gas station.
Ah, that's great.
I do sometimes drop off like little business cards. I got a whole bunch of business cards made not too long ago because I thought I was gonna, go on tour, and then COVID happened. So I have like a giant stack of business cards, and since then I've lost my phone number, so they're all useless. But I do make a point of like just leaving little Tales from the Gas Station cards at random gas stations, just to see what happens. And I don't know if anything has come of it, but I like to think some gas station employee has like found a Tales from the Gas Station card and been like, okay. Yeah, no.
That's brand management. We have had a few people asking, and it kind of comes back around to this. So like Tales from the Convenience Store.
Yeah, it does not have the same ring.
Well done. If not firsthand experience in a gas station, what was the origin story behind Tales from the Gas Station?
It was working at the grocery store, the inconvenience store. So much stuff is just like, you'd be amazed at how little changed from the reality to the story. I don't want to name the person, but Calvin Ambrose is a real person.
People were asking about that. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, no, he's real. He's real, and I don't know what he's doing with his life now. Last I heard, he's not. Minor spoilers for book 2. He's not melted or turned into an old man or.
More's the pity.
Yeah, but yes, that weird, just being a terrible person, and then also really liking me for no reason, and then just like, you and me, Jack, we're the same, right? You and me are both these kinds of people, and I just constantly be like, I don't think you should say some of the words you're saying, but you're my manager, and I don't know where the line is here.
Good times gone by.
Mm-hmm.
We also, that reminds me of something that somebody asked in advance earlier. If you don't have anything else right at hand, pull it on.
We did have the weird things that have happened at your job.
Oh,
which, speaking of, so weird things just happen to you when you're in the French Quarter here in New Orleans.
My God, I know exactly what story you're thinking of.
Which one?
Presumably the person who had been like impaled on the fence.
That. So yes. So one time I'm giving a tour and a woman comes around the corner and she says, "Are any of you doctors?" I'm like, "No, I'm a tour guide." And
on the side.
You could be both.
And she like brings me around the corner, and this guy who was like strung out on something, I have no idea what. And this is in the middle of the day, by the way. This wasn't even at night. It's like 3 p.m. in the afternoon. This guy had tried to climb over a wall into someone's yard in the French Quarter. And a lot of the people who live in the French Quarter will have spikes or razor wire or broken glass cemented
Yeah,
at the top of
broken
their
glass.
wall. In this case, it was broken glass, and the guy had lacerated his legs. And he'd also gotten caught on the fence trying to get down from the wall. So he was stuck, suspended in midair, bleeding about a half pint of blood.
Oh, God.
And that kind of ruined the tour. I came by like 15 minutes later, and it was as if it had never happened. There was no blood. Like, it was all cleaned up. The police had come, and they just like did their French Quarter magic, and it was all gone for the tourists.
It is incredible how relatively clean that place is every morning. Yeah, I've had someone crawl out of a bush and chew on my ankle in the middle of a tour. I had a woman just follow me around for a while with a whole bunch of other people in tow, asking me if I was going to tell everybody about the unconstitutionality of the Louisiana Purchase. And then she just followed us. When I said no, she just followed us screaming Christianity repeatedly for a while. Apropos of nothing. It is
just the word Christianity, no predicate to the sentence.
Yeah. Who needs a verb?
Christianity. You know what? She's right. She made her point.
So yeah,
about the ankle.
I've had.
I love someone chewing on my ankle is like a bigger deal than the lacerated individual who is presumably dead. Yeah, come again.
Wow.
It is the French Quarter is truly the analog version of the internet. Like, it is an attention economy. Lots of the people there are flashing banner ads, and the worst thing you can do is click on them. So we learn our lessons little by little. It's best to be innocuous when you're there.
Oh, there's all the people in the French Quarter who have like the same standard gimmicks. I bet you I can tell you where you got your shoes.
Yeah.
Yep. Don't even engage.
Mm-hmm.
She's ankle biter to a whole level. Absolutely.
Did you find
Is ankle biter a thing?
I got sidetracked, but but I will do some hunting right now. This is a fun one. Jack, if there's ever a live action adaptation, do you have a choice for a Jactor?
So yeah, no, what a great question. I do have a choice, but I don't want to say it because in the possibility that, we actually get to have it made, I want to have the plausible deniability to tell the actor that they do pick, like, you were my first choice, Brad Pitt, it was always you. But no, I have a few people in mind who would probably do really well for that character. Someone in one of our posted questions on the blog, I think, asked if I wanted to act in it, and no. I just could not do it.
We've had a really fun time with the performance side of the Snake's Paw stories, the ones that go more in the audio drama direction. And it's all of us have a shared theater background, but it's been fun talking Jack back into the limelight.
Yeah, we actually have a few questions related to performance.
Yeah, and to like Snake's Paw production more generally. So
yeah,
can spend a bit of time on that front. We mentioned the name, and I think, what I wanted, and this will be maybe a bit of a segue, but there was a question both from someone in advance and some folks in the comment thread asking, Jack, you're thinking of going to conventions?
Yeah, no, I totally. So I kind of had myself mentally prepared. 2021 was going to be the year that I put myself out there, or maybe it was 2020. I don't know. I just remember I picked out a whole bunch of conventions that I was going to apply to go to with my books and meet some people. And then, stuff happened to the world. Most of the conventions got canceled, and the ones that didn't get canceled were the ones where, you didn't want to go to them because those are the ones that didn't get canceled. So I kind of just put that on the proverbial back burner as well. And I have not yet looked at it again. I was gonna go to get my first booth at the Texas Frightmare Weekend 2022, but somehow I just totally missed when the deadline to apply came through, so I won't be there. But yeah, no, I'm gonna try to get on the convention circuit this year. As soon as I know, I will make posts and let you guys know where I'll be.
And we will come pretending to be super fans and modeling the worst possible fan behavior.
You guys are going to have to wear masks now because they know what you look like. But fortunately, you can do that at conventions.
Just we few. Y'all will be the ones in the know. We have a few questions that kind of loop around the sort of origin story / source of ideas for Snake's Paw. So to the venture into the audio medium, Jack, any seeds in particular on that? I've been doing audio for a while, but I know like you've mostly had other people doing that work on your stories. Did that interest come from a particular direction for you?
The interest in the audio?
Yeah, coming into writing stories specifically for audio as opposed to written stuff that could be translated into audio.
I started writing originally just with the old-fashioned write to read it yourself, and then of course Mr. Creepypasta, who is in the comments section right now, he took Tales from the Gas Station, the original one, and he started the audio drama, started the passion, the fire burning. Once I heard like my words spoken out loud, I was like, oh, okay, I think I need to change how I'm writing this. Many people might remember the original iteration of Tales from the Gas Station when it was still in blog form. Like the third episode was just arbitrarily missing. The fourth episode was from a different narrator, Jerry, and poor Mr. Creepypasta had to like figure out a way to explain all of that in an audio format. Actually, hey, Mr. Creepypasta, if you're watching right now, a lot of people were wondering when the audiobook's going to be done.
Oh yeah.
What's going on, man? What are you doing? Why are you watching this? Why aren't you reading? Patiently wait for him to answer that.
Yeah. We also, all of us have some background in live theater.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of some of our earliest collaborations were done in that medium. Obviously you can't quite do that online. I guess we're sort of doing that now. It is live at least. But it's kind of a way of like translating that. So we've had this history of writing together, of performing together, mostly because we can afford other people to perform for us. Andrew here's the only one of us who is professionally an actor.
I think you can
just make it.
Tour guiding.
Plug his own work, but I won't do it without your permission. Just look up his IMDb page.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think it's totally coincidental that we started this when we did, because we're all homebound for a while. We couldn't do our analog things so much, and so taking the kind of the combination of the writerly sensibility and the live sensibility and putting them into a form that we could capture and make last a while. Also, like right before quarantine started, we had just had a play go up and it was like years of work writing this thing, and then it ran for like 2 weeks, and the last performance was lost to COVID. And so I think there's definitely, at least for me, some thinking about like, let's try to make something that lasts a little bit longer. We have a Mr. Creepypasta response. He's had it for exactly 9 hours so far, so he's almost done.
All right, good.
The feed. So I'm not helping. We have about 5 monitors going over here, y'all.
Yeah.
We also had a few questions about particular Snake's Paw topics. There's where the sort of sound design voiceover background comes from. We're lucky to have some friends who so I do just enough voiceover. This is a lightly sound treated home studio that I have a little bit of a space set up, but we also have friends who can tell us what we don't already know. So asking a lot of help. And that is, since this is a collaboration at its heart, asking other people to come on board regularly is, what makes it sustainable so far.
Yeah.
There's a related question there from Zanto John. I'm sure I pronounced that right. What do all of you guys like to do outside of Snake's Paw? And do you guys record together in the same room or separately? I'm interested to hear how you guys work together in a group setting. So 2-part question. So recording together versus separately, we do both depending on what's convenient. I do not live in New Orleans. It takes a little bit of a drive for me to get there, but when I do, we always try to kind of time that along with a big script or something. All of the Starship Mudskippers we'll do around a table, and it's a blast.
It's a lot of fun.
And, we might end up sharing the process experience of that at some point, because we do musical transitions utterly unplanned. It gets pretty freaky.
I'd say to read like an hour-long episode, to read a 30-minute episode, it usually takes us a couple hours because we have to stop and take breaks to laugh or random other nonsense, or a neighbor's dog will start barking and we'll all bark back. I don't know.
There's that one time we did really legit have a voodoo ceremony going on the other side of the house. All kinds of
the drums.
Yeah, all kinds of shenanigans. But we're also able to record. So when we record as a group, we record in home studio here. It's a decently non-reverby room, but we have also had people record lots of different places and just get all the sound together after the fact. We're flying by the seat of our pants on an audio production front, but so far it's managed to work. Or we've written a few things in a way that it doesn't necessarily have to sound like it works sometimes. And there was on the performance front, maybe performance slash a also writing front, there was a question of like favorite characters to write from the Snake's Paw stories so far. Write and or voice.
There's a few characters in Starship Mudskipper that so our friend Jeff is the one who does the computer, and computer, when I originally came up with it, I just thought it might be just a robotic voice, but oh my god, Jeff is so funny listening to him like do the lines from the computer. So that's one of my favorite ones, definitely.
Yeah, and we have some friends who are like Andrew acts professionally. Our friend Helen, who voices in many things, including Mombot and Starship Mudskipper, has done a lot of acting and is very involved in the theater in general. And but we have a lot of friends who aren't really theater people, and they've never done much acting, and that includes Jeff. But he just like fits this role so perfectly.
Also, y'all, like, so Jeff's my partner, and he like came with me to an audition one day, and the infuriating and wonderful thing that is like the imaginary way that every actor gets their start happened. He was just there with me while I was like checking in for an audition, and the person doing the registration just like gave him a once over and was like, do you want to audition too? And he was like, sure. He got the call back, he got the gig, and like he and I were on a commercial together. He's just somebody who kind of like arrests the attention, got a really good native instinct for it. And if you do the casting right, those things can really shake out well. Have you really enjoyed writing anybody so far or voicing anybody?
Yeah. So someone was actually just asking if we're going to be writing more Clone of My Own.
Ha!
Which, yes, we absolutely are. I really enjoyed writing it. And so I've got at least, I think, 2 more episodes I can get out of it. And those two characters, or really, I guess it's more than 2 characters, because the character that Andrew plays is actually multiple people, multiple clones. But those were both a lot of fun to write. And in terms of performing, I don't know, it has to be Barry, I guess, because it's just fun to
Barry's
perform
great.
with everyone. Yeah.
It is the Mud Skipper things have been the most fun to put together so far, just because everybody's in the room together. The chemistry is a really, really good time.
I think the first 2 episodes of Mud Skipper also were completed writing the day that we performed them. So like our first run through was kind of a very fresh. Most of the people hadn't even read through. There's something about that.
Yeah,
that makes it more fun.
It's raw. We had a weirdly prescient question in here, just to, for something that the 3 of us have discussed that somebody actually asked about. Caleb asked us, would you ever do a new long-term story series where each of you narrate and voice a specific character? And it's a very sketchy idea at this point. We're talking about future ideas, things that we might flesh out that are on the kind of ambition scale of the Marjorie and Houdini series. And one idea that we've discussed lives pretty close to that suggestion. So watch this space. Not much we can say so far, but lots of ideas are in the offing that might end up looking like that.
Yeah. And related to that, someone asked earlier, John asked, how long does it take you guys to write your stories? Which, so this is one that's like very in like the seed stages. And we're kind of thinking it as more of a grand scale project, like the Marjorie and Houdini project was. That one took a long time to write because it also involved a good deal of research. That would, let's say, we've been thinking about it for years, but like an active writing process through production was probably like 8 or 9 months.
Yeah. And there were elements of that were pure delay, as we were like in really active work on that for probably 5 or 6. But yeah, those things, that was 4 episodes. It was like 3 something hours worth of material. So it doesn't necessarily always zoom along. I think both of us are always in awe of like Jack is a fast writer. Kind of
like Staircase. You wrote in what?
So Staircase was when we jokingly Andrew had an audition for can I say the show's name?
I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but
Something...
let's keep it genre.
Yeah. Okay, so he had an audition for a show, and we just tried to guess what it was going to be about based on the name. And I think Mafo said something about a staircase, and then I was like, "The Staircase. It's a detective genre." And then for like 5 minutes, we riffed on Staircase. So we had that idea, kind of like that was an idea. We put it on the back burner, forgot about it mostly, and then we have an episode due tomorrow. And I was like, well, let me dust off the staircase idea. And I sat down and just like did the obsessive writing thing. And then when I was done with it, I called Mafo and we called our friends Helen and James. I was like, hey, we're going to record this thing tonight. I'm going to edit it. It's going to be up tomorrow. So
I was out of the country at the time. So like I was just seeing these messages periodically. I didn't know that this thing was in gestation. And I just saw like, hey, I'm going to do this. And like very soon later, a script is done. And then like
from pen to paper to the moment the script was done, that was like 4 hours.
It was mind blowing.
And some stuff just goes a lot faster. Like Clone of My Own took maybe 2 or 3 days to write.
So
it kind of depends on how fully fleshed the idea comes to you. And also just how many characters you have to juggle with. Marjorie and Houdini, that's been our largest cast. So
Ooh,
There's
I like this question. Pink Enigma wants to know if any of us have ever done any improv classes. Not
Yes.
really.
there's little bits of improv when you do actor training, but no, never anything focused on it. Friendship is a constant improv.
Yeah,
class.
I was just about to say kind of the way we always try to yes and each other when we're just hanging out. It kind of is its own version of an improv class. But no, nothing professional. Is monetization of Snake's Paw primarily only through Ko-Fi?
It is,
Yes.
I believe now exclusively through Ko-Fi. We will eventually have YouTube monetization, which will bring in a little bit of money. We're halfway there, I think.
I think
it's all through Ko-Fi
where
now.
we're at right now, that'll be like pennies to start off with, but sweet, delicious pennies.
Ko-Fi.
If you guys want to help, when we finally get monetized, just click every commercial they send to you.
Yeah, it's this is definitely something that we're doing as a thing that we really enjoy the process of.
Yeah.
As it stands. And you know, when someone decides to kick in, it is what is the business phrase? It is a defrayment of expenses is what that represents at this point. So it's very welcome help when it comes along.
Plus, it forces us to hang out, at least once every couple of weeks.
And the fact that like we've always had a creative framework around hanging out. I mean, you know, if you have those friends, you have those friends. It's just, you know, people that you riff with, and that's what you do. So us making stuff together, that's just kind of how we have fun. On that vein, do y'all wanna tap into the Ko-Fi thing a little bit before we loop around to some other stuff?
We had a little bit of discussion about the future of the Ko-Fi platform. By the way, are we even saying that right? Did we ever look it up? Is it Ko-Fi?
Well, like there's the one called Buy Me a Coffee where it's spelled coffee. And then there's the implication that you're buying somebody a coffee on Ko-fi, which looks like the Japanese spelling of coffee, which is like you'd write it out in Romaji with like a Ko-HI dash. And maybe that's I don't know what's going on.
Also, I see this like lo-fi.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
So we don't know. We're going to call it Ko-Fi for now.
Co-fidelity. Yeah, Ko-Fi is how people know what we're talking about.
Yeah. But we do want to expand what we have had so far, which so far has just been kind of our undying gratitude to our patrons and the occasional
early releases of videos, but that's the only thing we've done for our Ko-Fi patrons so far.
But we want to do more, and we're open to suggestions, but we've been forming some ideas for some more things that we're going to do to kind of make it a little bit more rewarding to those of you who wanted to patronize us. Do we have anything specific we can kind of share? We're definitely going to be doing some more behind the scenes material.
Yeah, and so behind the scenes, we mentioned we have a pretty raucous good time when we do group recordings. So sharing some of the process on that would certainly be fun. There's other things that we're considering. Folks have asked about, you know, writing related insight on some of the stuff periodically. I know there's folks who, as writers, want a glimpse behind the veil on some of that. So that's a possibility down the way. And then Mappo is our personal nicknames. Matthew, I call Maffo. Matthew is very much our film buff, and we've discussed maybe getting together around viewings and or readings sometimes.
So just throw this in there real quick. Erica Durr, friend of the show, is apparently in the live chat, and she has said that Ko-fi rhymes with no fee. So thank you, Erica. We've been saying it wrong the whole time. I'm probably going to keep calling it Ko-fi though.
Real talk. Ko-fi means you're sharing the fees with us.
Oh, and actually, speaking of, someone asked, Brendan just asked.
Oh, yeah.
I thought the Felt Zombies pitch was gold. Will we hear more?
Well,
which is something that we've talked about, is the prospect of having the opportunity for our Ko-fi supporters to vote on a basic pitch that gets graduated into an actual production, and doing this maybe once or twice a year. So that's possible.
If you like that one,
That one will
wait.
be so hard to do.
Yeah, it's like we defined the medium pretty intensely already. So doing audio reveal that somebody is a Muppet, I look forward to seeing how we can figure that out. But I think we're up to
Challenge accepted. Yeah, no, we got this.
It's in the dialogue. Clearly, he's got googly eyes. We'll do a really classic, cheesy, old school audio drama.
Pan into Henson eyes. Love
it. Yes. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've heard some great audio drama done with like film style directions. So
we've discussed possibly, I've written a few movie scripts actually, and we had discussed at one point the possibility of just reading it and performing it, and whenever there's scene descriptions, just reading that out loud, like interior bar, so and so walks up to so and so.
If you write good stage directions, they're worth hearing. You miss a lot of stuff in stage directions. History is full of great stage directions. There's a stage direction in the Trojan Women, like ancient play, that at least in translation, because they didn't have stage directions originally, but somehow this made it into an iconic translation of it. There's a stage direction that says, "She dismisses the Greeks and their ways," which seeing an actor perform that, like, can you get them and the ways in there? There's all kinds of ambiguities that when you just say the directions, you don't miss it. What am I missing right now?
There's a lot of just wonderful chatter going on. So the werewolf pitch, the Red Wolf basic pitch, had a female love interest jokingly named Lupina, and I felt incredibly called out because I have a character named Lupina.
Oh God.
Yeah. Devin's asking if we were interested in giving writing lessons, which is we've talked about because you actually suggested earlier, Dev suggested the notion of like talking about the writing process and offering advice and lessons for people. We don't know if we feel qualified as teachers. We've never done that before, so we don't actually know. We could try, and we've discussed like what would be the best possible way to do that. So if y'all have any notion of how that might best work, if we could do some sort of seminar or if more behind the scenes
TED Talk, a masterclass.
Yeah, I feel like what we know is how we do it, and so we certainly can.
Yeah, because I think it's a very individual experience to a large
totally.
Degree. You can give advice on like things that might help, but everyone kind of has to find their own way. So the balance is like telling people like, you can do it this way, but not like insisting that they do it a certain way.
Yeah. So at best, it is at the level of suggestion, but also I think, since we are lucky enough to have people who are down to listen to the particular stuff that we write, now and again, we might be in a position to share something about stuff we struggled with on a particular story. I mean, we wrestle with these things. It's it's not always an easy process. So pointing out where the hard parts are and could be an approach too. But we will see. I think it's so cool to see all talking with each other for the first time, to at least that we've gotten to witness, because the community building aspect of this, that's kind of going to be what guides us. So hearing from y'all is it's a big inspiration, and definitely nice granular details in there too.
Yeah, and someone asked if this stream will be available after it's done, and it should be just a set video on the channel once it's over. Yeah, you should be able.
I just want to point out real quick an aside, the person who also named a character Lupina, their username is Cthulhu, and I just got to say, like, if your name is Cthulhu, you can come up with some amazing names, so don't even worry about that.
I didn't hear the spelling change at first. That's lovely.
That's awesome. I wish I'd come up with that.
Someone asked a little while ago, and this is kind of related to the notion of writing lessons, is like, what are your guys' writing process?
Okay, wow.
Which I feel like it varies from project to project a lot of the time. Because sometimes, like a lot of, especially if it's a project that I'm writing on my own, obviously I just kind of do it when I have time. But if we're collaborating on something, like when Andrew and I collaborated on Marjorie and Houdini, or I remember Jack and I wrote a thing a while back, which may some
It needs to see the
eventually
light
see
of
the light
day.
of day.
That one's been on a
Yeah,
back burner for so long.
it's something that we conceived of as like a web series, like a video series. And we wrote that together. We'd like sit down at the table and we'd spend most of the time writing it together, and we'd like write something and we'd show it to the other one and they'd laugh. And so it was just like almost as if we were like having a conversation, but through the writing that we were doing.
Yeah. You want to go ahead and kind of give them an idea of what it is? Because we
Yeah,
finished the writing process for that.
yeah,
We
we
just
did.
never pulled the trigger on making it into a web series because that part's really hard and expensive.
Yeah.
Whereas writing is really hard but cheap.
Yes. So yeah, it was we called it Bunkmates, and it's about this couple. It's like a doomsday prep couple who has like created this underground bunker, and turns out they were right, and the apocalypse does in fact happen. And so they go to their bunker, but they find that a homeless person has been living in the bunker for an indefinite period of time, and they're just stuck in the post-apocalypse in their bunker with a homeless person who they don't know, who might be crazy,
But the
but in
homeless
like a fun
person,
way. It's a comedy.
the homeless person was the funnest person to write for too, because
Yeah,
he's the endearing roommate who like he only wants to help, but he's just cataclysmic in everything he tries to do.
it's
And
just like chaos embodied.
I feel like if there was one kind of shared through line of maybe everything, at least from the podcast, and I would venture to say at least a lot of what's in Tales from the Gas Station, it is oftentimes like a group brainstorm phase, whether you know it or not when it's happening. Like these kind of group conversations that then get down to like oh, I guess we're making a story out of this.
Yep.
Whereas you don't know that that's what it's going to be when you start doing the banter. You just kind of like you kind of improv a world together, and eventually maybe it feels coherent enough or exciting enough or mysterious enough that you want to explore it more deeply. I know like the concept for Ride or Die, the notion of undead bachelorettes in the French Quarter, came up as just a banter thing with James, one of our friends who has helped out with various aspects of the show. So if there was any one thing other than writing itself that happened in all of these, I would bet almost all of them involved an out loud brainstorm with friends at some point, maybe before the idea was even an idea.
yeah.
So
We have another question from Brendan that's worth asking you guys. I did a lot of art contests for Tales from the Gas Station on the subreddit and on the blog, and they were wondering if we might do anything similar for the Snake's Paw.
It has been so cool seeing, because for us it's audio. Like I didn't even have a mental picture of the characters from Starship Mudskipper, and then we just got these incredible.
Shout out to Sierra for that. Pink Enigma. We've linked to you in all of our stuff, but oh my gosh, like
Wombot, like mwah, the
right?
like Betty Crocker bloodstained combination. Just and none of us are visual people per se. So quite the inverse of what sorry, I misread Brendan's comment, but yeah, it's so given that we are always starting from a kind of conceptual place, and then when we see someone visualize it, it's so much fun. So I would love to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the hardest part though would be figuring out what a reward tier would look like for an art contest, because we don't have anything yet for the Snake's Paw. We have discussed conceptually maybe doing some merch at some point, but
yeah, we've had that question a few times about the merch thing, and it'll be a fun thing for us to figure out, because if what we're largely doing is limited series where the same characters don't recur for a super long time, then it's going to be something more kind of either general to the podcast or stuff that's available for a short time, because a series is only around for a relatively short time. We don't know quite what that'll look like yet, but that is somewhere down the pipeline. So if y'all want to go out, I don't know, wearing swag that says the Snake's Paw on it, or any other paradoxes or non-existent objects that we think of, we will keep the means in mind. Y'all will be the first to know.
Someone is suggesting a berry plush.
Berry plush.
Yeah.
Yes. We had some suggestions for Rita the raccoon plushies, and what's our and our what's the guy raccoon?
Rocco?
Rocco, thank you.
Yeah, someone actually did make a Rita the raccoon plushie.
Really?
A while back.
Wow.
I don't know.
Y'all and your skills, I mean,
but...
definitely color me impressed. Yeah, so that's another great idea for us to tie into things, because we would love to see multiple interpretations. It's also really cool with the gas station story is that there really has come to be, in a fun way, kind of an orthodoxy, a range within which to riff on what these characters look like, even though they're
the strangest thing too, because there were early on, I purposely didn't do any descriptions of any of the characters because I just wanted people to imagine it however they wanted to, and apparently everyone imagined it pretty similarly, and I was like, all right.
And also that Jack came out looking a little bit like you is kind of a trip.
There was at least one that was just remarkably similar to real me, and I was just like, should I be worried?
Y'all are around the phase where secret identity is no longer quite such a big deal. The face and the voice are all out there now.
I figure at this point, if anyone wants to track me down and kill me, I had a good run.
Speaking of tracking down and killing, I think one of the fun things in the questions has been, and this is, I think we can probably, based on how much you said about how many of the characters have a source in reality, but did you know a Spencer Middleton, anyone who was an intense character to quite that degree?
Let me answer that one very shortly. Yes, I will not elaborate, but no, yeah, Spencer Middleton's absolutely based on a real person.
Jack has lived a colorful life. And then we've had a couple of questions, including one that has just popped up, which pertains to Finding Vanessa, and shout out to the Finding Vanessa fans in the crew. It is it's the quieter room in the Tales from the Gas Station complex. But what are you thinking on that, Jack? We haven't talked about
No, Finding Vanessa is not done for good. There will be more Finding Vanessa at some point. Finding Vanessa is a collaboration between me and another author who at this point is choosing to maintain their privacy, and I'm respecting that. However, we have touched base, and we do have just a general plan to finish that story. So there will be more Eric Riggin at some point. And Andrew famously voiced Eric Riggin for season 2, did a great job.
So that's why I am as excited as I am, because he was really fun. That whole series was really fun to voice. And the current Snake's Paw YouTube channel is the Finding Vanessa YouTube channel reskinned.
Oh yeah, just reskinned.
Yeah.
It's funny because the iTunes thumbnail picture, we just can't get the darn thing to change. So if you look,
oh my goodness, we're stuck with that silly shadow picture. Oh.
But then, like the one with all the reviews, it's the one with the Eric Riggin silhouette, artistic, drinking a wine. I think I'm not really sure what he's doing.
Yeah, it was a glass of something or other.
We saw we had a question specifically for you about your queer history podcast.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool. Thanks for asking.
I've been asking if you're going to do more episodes, or maybe when they were happening.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So all of us are spinning multiple plates, and a couple of the other things I do, I've got a YouTube channel about New Orleans related stories. That's Free Tours by Foot New Orleans. And then I am in the mostly planning stages of a podcast about queer history, but like not the 20th century civil rights movement history, the like way back when kind of stuff. The like, if we can get back into like 3-digit numbers, I'm all for the year, I'm all about that. And I've been in like the planning stage on that for quite some time, and I have a lot of story ideas I want to share because there's some bonkers stuff in the deep history. But there was one story that just was so kind of current that I had to get it out there because, as many of you may know, the kind of weird situation around abortion laws in Texas, where there was kind of a bounty system put onto a law for the first time, which is just not very precedented in American history. It reminded me of this thing that happened in Renaissance Italy, where basically the whole public was conscripted into the cause of reporting on what the time called sodomites. And they did it, but they only did it if the powers that be didn't punish them too hard, because they thought it was like a sin, but not a really serious sin. And so accidentally, by bringing in the public, the government of Florence, the city where this was done, both made the prosecution more aggressive and made it milder. And by doing so, they ended up creating this incredible record of like what people's lives were like, because they were documenting people while not killing them. And so you get this kind of efflorescence of stories that are visible there that weren't really visible in most other phases of history. So I did a story about that, and I'm just kind of like working on the repertoire besides. I've got like 7 or 8 different stories in the offing. So those will be coming out before long. Just depends on how long it takes to keep the other plates spinning. So thank you for asking. That's the long way of saying yes, more is on its way.
So someone asks, is there a real life Jerry?
Yes, there is. There is a real life Jerry. That's all. Moving on.
I have like a headcanon real life Jerry. But I don't know if it's actually who Jerry is based on.
We'll discuss it after we turn this off. Jerry, also, it's one of those things where like the real life Jerry didn't sign up to be famous. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah, so their stage name is Real Life Jerry for the time being. Richard, Rome and Mesopotamia all the way. The Rome stories, honestly, you could overflow. Every other story could be a Rome or Greece story, but we've got some good ways to fit other cultures in there too. Looking through. Y'all are fun. I wish we had time to respond to everything. Is there anything else on the tips of our tongues, y'all? We'll kind of make this a home stretch, the last few minutes, in case anybody still wants to get something in. So
lightning round, go.
Questions, feel free to
no
ask.
questions more than 5 letters long.
But so Brendan a while back asked, I said I'm an electrical engineer. Is Jack some sort of engineer? You had Jerry making analog circuits and dropping Graham's number.
No, I'm
interested. He does know things.
Yes. But I'm just interested in like Graham's number, things like that I find just fascinating. But no, nothing, no professional training in engineering or anything like that. Back in the day, I had a really clunky laptop computer that I got off of eBay, and I started doing programming in BASIC and QBasic. And one of my early creative endeavors was making these really low quality but heartfelt video games for my friends.
Space adventures. Who doesn't love them?
And like
yes. Yeah,
that's right. Story. Yeah.
So that's my closest thing to an engineering background is hobby programming. Oh, and I made an app one time that was actually a lot of fun, but
that's right.
I let it go by the wayside. And apparently, if you don't update apps with every new Android update, then they just kind of like let it die, so you'll never find it.
To very briefly, we had a couple of asks, so we can do any promo moments, I guess, that we want to. We can be possessed by the promo demon for a moment. Yes. So anyone who wants to check out the other thing that I mentioned, the queer history thing, it's not on a feed as of yet, but it's at my website, which is andrewferrier.com. My last name, which you can see right.
If you don't want to remember his name, you could also just go to thesnakespaw.com, and at the top you will see a link to Andrew and Mafo's other personal pages.
And Matthew has a lot of writing that is not necessarily in the same genre pocket that we do with Snake's Paw, but a lot of great short pieces that are well worth a read if you've enjoyed what you've heard on the channel so far. Yeah. So that would be another worthwhile little detour off of the Snake's Paw website.
And on that note, someone asked a while back, Communist.
I love that name. When I said y'all had some great usernames, that's the one I was looking at.
I was just in the last 10 minutes just reading people's names out loud.
Ask, what's your guys' favorite thing you've ever written?
Jeez.
Which is hard. That's a very hard question.
My favorite thing I've ever written, I've shared it with both of you. I have not shared it with the public. And it was the first 2 episodes of a potential television series called Kill the Hero, that takes a standard fantasy drama from the perspective of a random henchman who accidentally killed the main character and has to deal with the fallout of that. Which maybe one day we'll get to see.
That's a really fun one. It does with horror, like as Tales from the Gas Station does with some horror tropes, takes them and riffs on them and flips them on their heads. It does some great stuff with like medieval fantasy kinds of tropes, and you just see like there's so many different things.
So many things to paradise.
We also we have, I think this is more of a Jack question. Are there any favorite creepypastas that you would recommend that other people have written?
Oh gosh, yeah, so many. So I was looking into like just the other day to see how old my creepypasta actually was, and I did it in October of 2017, and that just reminded me that in November of 2017, practically a week or 2 from when I did mine, Left Right Game came out. And I don't know if y'all have read the Left Right Game. Oh man, just mwah. It made me look so bad by comparison. It was phenomenal. And last I heard, it's getting its own television adaptation soon. But Left Right Game, if you have not read it, it's definitely worth checking out. And then, of course, Baraska is a classic. Yeah, I feel kind of basic with my recommendations. But definitely those 2. Great place to start.
Also, not an inappropriate question, Jack. There's an ask about animated versions of Tales from the Gas Station, or maybe broadly visual versions. Any insight there?
So, without saying anything I'm not supposed to say, there may end up being an adaptation of Tales from the Gas Station to screen at some point, and because of that, it kind of makes it difficult to like discuss or make plans for other people. Like I've gotten a lot of people who have asked if I minded if they just like do a little short film of it or something like that, and I have to say no, because I have to keep the rights very specifically not shared. It's hard to talk circles around what I'm not allowed to talk about.
It's a thing you learn when you do it long enough. It's very counterintuitive until then. So just imagine.
Yeah. I would love to see an animated cartoon version of Tales from the Gas Station from one day, but
let's see. We have a few questions about Jack, and it's not always clear when you were asked about Jack, whether it's Jack the writer or Jack the character.
Two very different people.
Right. So questions about like, is he a gun guy? Is he ace? I feel like as far as character is concerned, any of that can be left to volume 4. So volume 4 will involve maybe some answers.
Good. Also good answer.
Kind of a counterpoint to a question of like, what's the favorite thing you wrote is, what's a story, is Santa John, what's a story you wrote that made you say, what the heck was I thinking? This is terrible.
Wait, did you guys ever answer your favorite things y'all have written?
Nope.
Oh, no. I was kind of hoping to dodge that one.
Yeah. Ours are not, our side projects are a little less here relevant. I don't know. It takes a little while to explain the plays and everything, but there's, suffice to say, the records are there to be beaten.
Yeah. And
if you'd like to know the stuff that they are working on now, just go to their websites. Go to
That's right.
thesnakesball.com and follow it.
Yeah, and in terms of like terrible things, like I don't think there's anything I've ever written that didn't at least value the fact that I wrote it, that it was like some kind of learning experience, or like kind of just like taught me what not to do at the very least. So because there are things I definitely wouldn't want people to read, obviously, mostly from way back when. But
we all have a lot of that.
Yeah, that's just a necessary phase to go through as a writer. But they're all, as a writer, as someone who is like writing and not reading my writing, they're all beneficial in some way.
Totally.
A couple other questions from back when, which are pretty good. Well, this is a good, straightforward question. This is Not How We Walk asked, what's your favorite horror movie / story?
Ooh, gosh. So I don't have one favorite, but I have like 100 different favorites that are all in my top 5. Off the top of my head, like the number 1 spot's probably going to be Tucker and Dale versus Evil, which is a film starring Alan Tudyk, and I just brain fogged on the other one's name. Tyler Labine. Yeah. If you have not seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil and you like horror comedy, then do yourself a favor and go watch Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Strong one.
Yeah, I recently, in terms of horror, my favorites are, there's some that pop into my head are like Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead, the Romero Dawn of the Dead. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Recently, we rewatched Evil Dead 2, which is a masterpiece.
Love Evil Dead 2.
God, it is so good.
That's where my head was, actually.
Yeah. And in terms of horror comedy, like it doesn't get better than Evil Dead 2. It like straddles the line.
It does such a good job of like getting that ridiculous insanity that just makes it to the point where you can't really be scared because it's so absurd. Yeah.
It's still like a little unsettling.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a camp factor there, but it doesn't corrupt anything.
Yeah,
like it
exactly.
Fully is capable of the full range. We also have, so I think as maybe a strong couple of closing questions that'll be relevant to everyone, and then we can pick up a couple of details if we want. Is there anything you'd like to say, Jack, about what's in store for you after this book?
Probably a really nice nap. Honestly, like I've got a lot of different projects I want to take on now, but I'm gonna kind of just step away from everything for a little bit, except for the Snake's Paw, and kind of give that a little bit of my attention for a while. And then when I'm ready to do the next big project, I'll be letting everybody know on the website. So,
and
another non-answer, sorry.
And we had a general question of so for the writers, when you find your head not quite in the game, what's a thing you like to do that will just kind of help reset you? Besides, it sounded like besides a writing habit, what's something to like go out in the world and do? I'm very much a gardener, so I will, after this is done, be going and peeking at my seeds and seeing which things are sprouting and which things are putting out their mature leaves, and that just kind of like centers me. Plants are great collaborators because they get all kinds of things done while you're not looking. So that's
a similar vein. I've been playing Stardew Valley. You know, all of the same
digital gardener.
I get to plant my digital pumpkins, except you don't have anything to show for it afterwards. But yeah.
And me, I just like chill out. I like to walk. So walk around and just let my brain do its own thing, kind of decompress. Also like to read, especially we were talking more about active stuff, like reading and like watching movies, and then like reading about the things that I read and watched. It's always a way to, especially if I'm running out of ideas, it kind of like sparks new ideas, even if it's not like an idea of like an idea for a story. It's an idea of how you could like tell a story or like riff on things. So it's always nice. to recharge the battery.
Yeah. Sometimes you do just need to stop and let your battery recharge too. I tell people that a lot too. Like you don't have to produce every day. And sometimes you really do need to have a blow off steam day.
Yeah.
If that's playing video games or whatever, just do it. Forgive yourself.
And someone has noticed that it's a big revelation. Real Jack actually does sleep.
Yeah. And I have all 10 fingers. Yeah. No,
Both legs. I can even attest.
Yeah.
So real life Jack and book Jack are two different people. So sorry to disappoint some people.
We also had a couple people ask what our first horror movie was. Which
you know what instantly leapt to my mind as the answer to that question, because horror is very subjective, was Fern Gully.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's legit.
That pollution monster, I mean, that has been
Hexus, Curry.
My God, yes.
Tim Curry and Robin Williams in a movie together.
What a genius combination. So
they didn't get any scenes together, I don't think. Anyway, we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah,
so we're gonna get one last question to be the most important one to cap it off. What do y'all think?
So someone asked, this is maybe a good let me just ask this question because it's flattering. Austin Dunn at a while back asked, from 3 to 457, how much would you rate the experience of being smart, famous, and handsome influencers?
Weird rating scale from 3 to 457.
Presumably 3 is high and 457 is pink. What I think I would say that in different ways, all three of us are pretty new to the internet space as a way of like interacting with people besides the people that we already know in real life. And so Jack's been at it a little longer, what with the kind of miraculous story that was the beginning of Tales from the Gas Station. It's life over on Reddit, but it's a new experience all around.
So far, honestly, it feels like, because this project, like the Snake's Paw, is just really a continuation of us writing stuff and hanging out together and being friends. And so now it's like we get to be friends together and you all get to take part in it, which is just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty sold on the idea so far.
Yeah.
So, well, please keep the comments rolling in. Any other thoughts that come to you, we will check out what is in the comment section later on. And thank y'all for making some time to hang out with us on a Saturday.
This was fun. If y'all want to do something like this again, just let us know in the comments.
And we will see you for the usual time back in the feed, which is going to be 2 more weeks almost, weekend and week and a half ish, 2 Thursdays from now. That's the easy way to say it. And more news on some of the things that we've been a little fuzzy about. And enjoy your read or listen, perhaps, of Volume 4.
I keep forgetting that's out. Sorry in advance if you hate it. Bye.
On that note,